So after Trump's election, Vivek was given a made-up job in the incoming administration, a position he actually has to share with Elon Musk. They'll be co-heading the so-called Department of Government Efficiency. Because what's more efficient than needing two people to do one person's job? This is not a real department. It's some office that's being set up in the White House that won't actually have the power to do anything but issue reports and make noise. But Musk is extremely excited about it. He spent over $100 million on electing Trump, which should yield him some real power in the administration. But kind of like that scene in Dumb and Dumber when Harry and Lloyd come across that briefcase full of money and just spend it all on the stupidest shit imaginable, Musk is cashing in all his credits on a meme department. He is having a field day with the acronym, though, Doge. He's selling merchandise around it. And an added benefit for him here is that he probably still has holdings in Dogecoin, and he could use the existence of the Doge to boost those Doge holdings. Yeah, somehow the election opened up an even more stupid timeline that we all have to live through now. But back to Vivek, who probably thought he was going to get a real cabinet position. Then again, he's a guy used to being humiliated by Republicans, like when Ann Coulter told him how much she liked him and agreed with him, but that she'd never vote for him because he's brown. Vivek is embracing his role at the Doge. He said he wants to, quote, slash and burn the bureaucracy. And he has some ideas on how to do it. Vivek's been sharing them on the podcast circuit. Here's one of them from the Tucker Carlson podcast.
The mass deportation of millions of unelected federal bureaucrats out of the DC bureaucracy. And I do think that is what's going to save this country.
But you
in the long
can't do
run.
that.
I think you actually can.
You can't fire. We can all be fired. I've been fired many times.
Yeah.
I'm sure you the presidential race. Like we've all, the only group that cannot fail that has actual tenure is not Harvard professors.
Not even. Yep.
It's not even.
Yeah.
It's federal bureaucrats.
So the one difference is, first of all, we have a president who I think has the spine to actually step up and do it. But the second thing is we actually have and not to get too, in the weeds here, but we actually have a legal landscape with the current Supreme Court that allows us to do what couldn't have been done in the last half century.
But they have
So Vivek wants to remove millions of people who work for the government. A mass firing that he argues will be rubber stamped by the U.S. Supreme Court with its conservative majority. And I suppose he's referring to the numerous protections that currently exist for federal workers to prevent mass political purges like this. One being discrimination based on marital status or political beliefs. So the plan is just to do some highly illegal shit and just hope the Supreme Court lets them get away with it. Gotta be honest, not a bad plan. It'll probably work. Here's another idea Vivek had, which he thinks could get around the whole issue of discrimination-based firing, which is illegal. Take a look.
Get in there on day one. Say that anybody in the federal bureaucracy who is not elected representatives obviously are elected by the people, but of the people who are not elected, if your social security number ends in an odd number, you're out. If it ends in an even number, you're in. There's a 50% cut right there. Of those who remain, if your social security number starts in an even number, you're in. And if it starts with an odd number, you're out. Boom. That's a 75% reduction, done literally stochastically. Okay. One of the virtues of that, it's a thought experiment, not a policy prescription. But one of the virtues of that thought experiment is that you don't have a bunch of lawsuits you're dealing with about gender discrimination or racial discrimination or political viewpoint discrimination. Actually, the reality is you didn't bring the chisel, you brought a chainsaw. I guarantee you, do that on day one and do step two on day two. On day three, not a thing will have changed for the ordinary American.
Nothing would have changed, huh? Unless you're one of the millions of people who just lost their job. That'd be a big change. People that include food and water inspectors, nuclear plant watchdogs, medical researchers, park rangers, customer service staff at various federal agencies that people rely on. Yeah, it might seem like nothing has changed when you lay off 75% of the government workforce, until slowly all our food is unsafe to eat. And areas around industrial factories turn into dead zones. And you can't go to public parks anymore. And you can't get through to anyone at the Social Security office because there isn't the staff to answer phones. And a nuclear power plant melts down. Are we really focused on government efficiency, or are we just trying to turn the US into a libertarian hellscape? I know it's the latter, but if it was actually the former, if Vivek and Elon actually cared about reducing federal spending and bloat, they'd go after the department that's never passed an audit, a black hole of federal resources, the fucking Pentagon. Does the mass Social Security number-based firing apply to the troops or the contractor bureaucracy within the Department of Defense? Of course not. Vivek's just obsessed with firing people, even though he hasn't had a real job in years. Being a conservative influencer and perpetual presidential candidate is not a job. I can understand, though, why he has beef with bureaucrats, especially the ones that make sure our pharmaceuticals are safe. It all has to do with how Vivek got rich in a very, very scummy way. In 2014, he founded a biotech firm in Bermuda called Roivant. And later that year, the company purchased a drug from GlaxoSmithKline that had been under development to treat Alzheimer's, but had failed in its phase 2 clinical trials. So what Vivek did with Roivant's new acquisition is spin off another company called Axovant to bring the drug to market as an Alzheimer's treatment. And he had his mom reconduct a second clinical trial, which the company then claimed showed promise for the drug to advance forward for more testing. And on that alone, Vivek was able to raise a lot of money for it. He took Axovant public, raising around $350 million in an IPO in 2015. And here was Vivek going on Jim Cramer's show to hype up the new drug.
But what I can tell you is that RVT-101 is a unique drug that we actually think could help millions of patients with Alzheimer's disease. Our focus is actually on the treatment of Alzheimer's disease, dementia, and other forms of dementia. We've actually put together what I view as a top-notch team in the industry.
Okay.
And so the way the drug works is been demonstrated in clinical trials. In a large phase 2 study, phase 2B study with 684 patients, multinational, double-blind, placebo-controlled study. And this is the key, on the pre-specified analysis, not some type of reanalysis or subgroup analysis, but on the pre-specified analysis, the drug actually demonstrated statistically significant improvements in both cognition and in function out to 24 weeks in a way that was maintained out to a full year in time. So that's actually what we think makes this such an exciting opportunity.
Again, that was a clinical trial his mom ran. And I'm not making any accusations of impropriety, but in the end, the drug never passed a third trial. And shortly after that, Axovant shares crashed and investors in the company lost millions. But as Newsweek summed it up, quote, while investors suffered significant losses, Ramaswamy profited from a higher media profile, IPO payouts, and the sale of remaining Axovant assets in 2020. So to recap here, Vivek's company purchased a drug at a cut rate price because clinical trials showed it didn't work. He then had his mom conduct another clinical trial, which he claimed showed it worked. He got rich off that, and then left everyone holding an empty bag a few years later when the third clinical trial, just like the original second trial, proved that the drug didn't actually work. And all along the way, he was instilling false hope in people who were actually sick that he had a miracle drug for them that would soon be on the market. This guy's been a fast-talking huckster his entire life, and now he's going after the millions of people out there who actually earn an honest living as a federal civil servant. What a scumbag. Vivek Ramaswamy is this week's Rich Dick. Hey, thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our new videos. Also, if you want to see Means Morning News in its complete form, not just the clips we post here, head on over to Means TV and get access to all our new episodes and our entire backlog, plus tons of other great movies and original TV shows.